Gayatri Mahamantra with your back straight. Om Bhuribhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Invocation of the Divine Master, Adi Guru Muni Vedvyas. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Deva Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Akhanda Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Om Shri Gurave Namah. व्यासरूपेण आवाहयामि स्थापयामि ध्यायामि पूजयामि ततो नमस्कारं करोमि. Shrimed Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 9, verse number 14. Under this particular verse, there is a strong message which is going to unravel before us. And before I come upon the exact words of the shloka, let's merely read it at a glance. Satatam kīrtayanto mam yatantaśh cha dṛiḍha-vratāḥ namasyantaśh cha mam bhaktyā nitya-yuktā upāsate. There are 6 significant words into this shloka that need to be highlighted. Before those words are highlighted, the 6th one, which happens to be the last in this verse. The slide of the shloka will be able to upload later after some editing or into the description of the video, because it was not possible for me to exhibit it today during this live class. So it shall be there in the description later on. The last word of this verse is upāsate, which is upasana. Once we understand the essence of upasana, rest all, the remaining 5 shall fall into their own respective place. So it is necessary for us to understand what is upasana. And this shloka number 14 is a continuation in the light of the previous shloka, number 13, wherein there was a mention about a Mahatma, a great soul. Who is a Mahatma? What is the process of becoming a Mahatma? And this verse number 14 now gives a detail upon that. So hold on to the most significant point, which is Upasana. What is Upasana? To understand the word, let us break it into 2 parts, up and asan. Up means near, in proximity. Asan means to be seated. Seated in proximity. Seated in proximity to whom? In proximity to the Almighty. So Upasana means to be in proximity with the Almighty, the divine effulgence. That is Upasana. Now, what is exactly Upasana and how it is done? We must understand. Why should one perform Upasana? How should it be performed? These 2 questions will give us a wonderful understanding about a procedure that comes to us as an endowment from the corridors of ancient Indian wisdom. During those unknown ancient times, our great masters had discovered that the man-making laboratory or workshop, you may assign it any term, the man-making workshop is Upasana. Upasana is the only workshop through which an ordinary human can scale up to the levels of becoming an exalted one, that we term as Brahma Rishi. And how does that happen? It shall happen when one sits in proximity to the Almighty. Where is Almighty? It is everywhere. If it is everywhere, then how do I discover it? It's not easy for my constrained, restricted sensorial drivers to become all pervasive in order to access proximity of the all pervasive one. So, what do I do? For that, it was indicated that we have a firm belief, as exalted ones mention, that the infinitesimal spark of that Almighty, the unmanifest, the all pervasive, it pervades within our own heart. आत्मा में परमात्मा का अंश, जीवात्मा में परमात्मा का अंश. So it resides in the form of a tiny spark, a tiny God within each one of us, in the cavity of our heart. So let us gather the proximity to the cavity of our heart. How do we do so? By turning inward. How do we turn inward? Every step is a question by in its own self. If you have to take a step, that step will only be followed after a question is answered, which is corresponding to that. So, how do we become inward? We become inward by first of all observing our own self. Who am I? Who am I does not mean that I need to understand my soul, my existence right at the first step. No. It's like a banana leaf, a banana tree, where you have peel after peel and you have to peel off layer after layer, layer after layer in order to discover what lies at the core. So when you start this process of peeling off, that is becoming inward. You close your eyes, you sit down in seclusion where there is no disturbance with you, and you sit down with that thought popping machine within yourself. There are lot many disturbances going on within you. You do not know how many portions your own awareness has been fragmented into. There is no account for that. But you somehow sit down and then gradually you turn inward by observing yourself, your own conduct. And how do you observe your conduct? By observing any given day. Why not the day when you are sitting? Why not the day that was the past, the yesterday? So you can start by observing any of your yesterday, how you were, what all transpired on that particular day, what were the occurrences, how were your responses, was there any need for any change, modification? So you examine your own individuality in the light of your outward life by becoming inward. So when you start in this manner, you are into an upasana, because now you're going to ultimately scale inward and reach the core of your own individuality. So upasana begins. You unravel your past day, your yesterday, see what you were, then you analyze that this is what I am. These are my shortcomings. These are my propensities that drive me, my urges, my yearnings, my unaccomplished desires. Where do I fall short upon? You discover everything about yourself, but that does not happen in one single day. No, it's not going to happen. It's going to take a considerable passage of time, even for you to gather yourself, turn inward, and try to analyze yourself without any bias. It's going to take a passage of time. It's not going to happen on one single day. There may be so many problems that come in between. There may be certain faults that disallow you to maintain that continuity within yourself. So not that easy. So In order to maintain even the continuity, you may have to slog and struggle with your own self, but nothing short of it can enable you to capacitate for upasana. Yes, worship is different, where you try to say something or you sing the glory of the Lord, which is also essential. There's no doubt about that. That also connects you with its source, ultimate source. But there you have something to convey. But here you have nothing to convey in upasana. To gather your proximity within your own self, it's more of observation. It's more of observation what exists, what prevails within you. And the first initiative is obviously by observing your own outward life, how you respond, what you are. And then you go on, then you further. When you further, then you also suggest yourself about necessary corrections that must come in so that you can maintain an inner equipoise for a longer period of time. Come out of the clutches of this thought popping machine, something which takes you for unmindful wanderings, unnecessarily makes you indulge into subjects which otherwise could have been averted easily. So this analysis upon your own self is upasana, and this is the workshop of becoming an exalted one, right from a ordinary human to that scale. Under Upasana, now the entire verse will unravel. As I said before starting this class, that there are six major considerants which I would like to embark upon in this shloka, in this class. And the last one covers the all. Once rightly understood, it will cover all. And that was Upasana. Under Upasana, now the first word of the shloka is satatam. Satatam means always. Satat, in continuation, perennial, something which is perennial, a perennial observation which is perennial. It cannot be so that when it comes to observe yourself, you accomplish on a day and then you become oblivion to that for the next 2 weeks. No, it is not so. It has to be in continuation. There cannot be a disconnect between that inner procedure. You cannot leave it open. Once you open yourself, you undergo a dissection within your own individuality. You cannot leave it open like that. There has to be a continuity. Otherwise, what will happen? Whatever you observed or whatever you were able to gain as a control upon yourself to enable yourself sit for a period of, say, for example, 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever the period may be. Although the great masters have advised that the period for which you should be there available for upasana should be in proportion to your age. If your age is 40 years, then sit down for 40 minutes. If you cannot afford 40 minutes, sit down for half of the time, 20 minutes. And even if that is something which seems a big compromise, then sit down for at least 10 minutes, the one fourth of the part, whatever that may be. So that procedure has to be as a perennial flow. It has to be always. It cannot be on one given day. So satatam in the light of upasana. It has to be perennially observed. The next second word in the verse, the first line of the verse is yatnataha. Yatnata is to make an effort. Can you make a continuity or a discipline without making an effort? No, it's not possible. You have so many things that come and try to thwart your discipline. You resolve for a discipline today, and on the very next day, there is some kind of a call which mandates your presence elsewhere. Maybe you give it so much of weightage that you really put aside your resolve which was taken a day before. Or maybe your temperament on that day underwent some spoil for some reason, whatever may be, an outward, however petty it may be, and you declare. What you declare, I'm not in the right mood to sit down to unravel my own individuality. No, I cannot. So, what is required is an effort. An effort which without any defiance can defy any intrusion that intends to thwart your discipline. So the perennial aspects of an observation of upasana cannot be observed unless you make an effort for that. You struggle within your own self for that. The third important point comes in the same light of upasana is dṛiḍha-vratāḥ. Dṛiḍha-vratāḥ is a word which rightly interpreted settles down as true will. We all will, but what is the true will? True will is something which is beyond any mutation, something which you will not compromise upon, something that you bank upon. We could also term it as Shiv Sankalp. The right word which I can gather in English is true will for that. That indomitable spirit, once resolved, that resolute, silent will not mutate itself, will not compromise for anything. Once taken, taken, accepted. Now, come what may, come what may, there shall be no resolve into that. The resolute, silent will shall prevail in its own capacity. And upasana cannot be observed anything short of it. Unless you are under the impel of a resolute, silent will, the true will, unless you struggle and make efforts to maintain your perennial, your continuity, upasana cannot be accomplished. The fourth word in the second line of the verse is namasyantaśh. Namasyantaśh means the dedication. Dedication is the submission to something that you hold ideal, something that you hold as lofty, something that you hold on a very higher fulcrum, towards which there is an unconditional presence, towards which there is an unconditional love within you. That is termed as namasyantaśh. The submission, the dedication of the highest order. Unless you have a dedication of the highest order towards any objective, would you ever initiate to take a resolute will? No, you would not. And unless you take a resolute will, would you struggle and slog to maintain it, to make an effort for it? No, you would not. And then outcome shall be, would you be able to maintain that continuity otherwise? No, you will not. So everything else now is falling in its own respective place. In the light of upasana, the procedure where you have to unravel your own self, approximate your true self within. All these observations, they enable you. And the next word is chamam bhaktyā. Here, dedication, devotion, and glory of the Lord does not mean that you sit down and you cram certain words. It's not only confined to chanting. It's much more. The Lord, if it prevails and pervades within you, then the glory is right there within you. It's there in the bosom of your own heart, in the cavity of your heart. So, the glory of the Lord is already there. That insatiable fire is already there. You simply have to make yourself available in a perennial course. The word which now comes the fifth in the verse is nitya-yuktā. What does nitya-yuktā means? Remain connected. Nitya-yuktā. Remain connected. There should not be any kind of a disconnect. For the purpose of nitya-yuktā, that is, remain connected, we at times advise for ajapa jap. Ajapa, the word means without making an effort for any japa. Ajapa jap. A japa an incantation going on within you without making any special effort towards it. Within your own breath, you simply embroider it within your own breath. That with each incoming and outgoing breath, the japa is in continuation. It's flowing through you. So ajapa jap is a kind of a technique through which we try to hinge with the mantra in such a manner that we remain connected with it at any given point of the day, within whatever state of mind we are, wherever we may be engaged outward, it keeps going at the back end of your mind. At the backdrop, it's in continuation without impeding into any activity which you're performing outward. So, nitya-yuktā means remain connected, and upasana cannot be performed. Upasana is for a specific period of time. But what about the outcome of upasana? I sit down for upasana, say for example, for 40 minutes, and I unravel that these are the deficiencies into me. I must overcome them if I really want a settled state of mind. If I want an inner equanimity, an inner equipoise, an inner harmony, a settled state of mind cannot be acquired unless I remain connected with it. And how do I remain connected? By doing sadhana. Remain connected, the synonym for that I may not be able to find in English language. So therefore, I impose upon the Hindi term sadhana. Nitya-yuktā means sadhana. Remain connected means sadhana. Keep on striving. Keep on striving. And sadhana is not performed at any specific period of time. Upasana is performed at a specific period of time, interval of a day, when you are absolutely available for that. There is nothing which is going to intrude and infringe. You have time available to you. You allocate a special corner in your home, in your own place for that purpose. You sit down silent and then turn inward. You can afford, say, for example, 40 minutes and not more than that. After that, you have to engage in your life outward. But the sadhana, that is, remain connected, has now to be an outcome of it, which means that the impact of upasana should now cover like a blanket upon your each passing day. So when you cover the findings, the observations of upasana upon your entire day, it is termed as sadhana. You are trying to gain more proficiency upon what all you unravel during upasana. So upasana is for a specific period of time. Sadhana is the implementation of its outcome upon your life. The process of becoming, the process of transmutation of your individuality is sadhana. And it's an ongoing process. It is not something which you say that I performed sadhana in the morning, although it has become a synonym to the observation of certain inward going techniques. Whenever you meditate, whenever you undergo a japa, that's an incantation, or you do pranayama, people, they term it as sadhana. They have observed sadhana as a synonym for all those observations. But in fact, it is not so. Sadhana is now becoming, and becoming is not for a specific period of time. It is the total transmutation of your individuality. So unless that is done, the fifth component is done, upasana shall not accomplish. So what is the rider? What rules? The ruling part is upasana, upasana, sitting down in proximity to the light, the effulgence of the Almighty, its blissful divine radiance that is there pervaded within our deep cavity of the heart. And for that, we must become turn inward. To turn inward, we need a settled state of mind. There are certain intruders that infringe and come to thwart all our interludes of this nature. So therefore, observe your own self. By observing your any given day, that is the yesterday, and then under your observation, Then you unravel what all needs to be. Either it has to be weeded out or it has to be planted into you, which means either you must instill a discipline or you must purify yourself in certain respects. So once you start knowing about that, then the implementation comes in the form of sadhana and cannot happen in one time effort as one time effort. It has to be done always. Cannot be done without struggle. There has to be lot struggle to keep going. Cannot be done without a resolute silent will, without a true will. There has to be, you have to truly will upon that, and cannot be done without a devotion, without a dedication. A dedication has to be there with intense and pure mandate, with pure mandate, not impure mandate which is compromising. And it has to be nitya-yuktā, remain connected at all times. Whatever you're responding, any kind of given situation that comes affront, and when it comes to respond to that situation, be it in the office, home, wherever, on the road, wherever, the riding factor at the back of your mind is the outcome of upasana, because ultimately you are an individual. Your individuality is not something which is a outcome of this present life. It's a culmination of experiences gathered in unknown lives beyond a count. You cannot count how many lives probably have contributed to the accumulated experience in the form of propensities, which now has come through as Panchakosha in this present life. So everything goes on in the light of what? Upasana. And Upasana is the foremost thing for any seeker. No seeker can become an exalted one without Upasana. Yes, puja is different than Upasana. That is what we also say. In the ancient times, our homes, at a home, we used to have Upasana Sthali. There may not be a right word, one single word for that. There is a word which we have for puja sthali as altar. A puja sthali. Yes, we have an altar at our home where we go and we convey and we try to connect with our Lord outward. But upasana sthali was different. It was to connect within your own self to your own true self, because your own true self is the Almighty. So why turn outward when it's there right in the cavity of your heart? So in the observation of Upasana, rest all points they fall in place, namely six. The Upasana being sixth is the riding one, and other five, as I mentioned, number one is the perennial observation. The second is making an effort to connect within yourself. The third is a resolute, silent will, true will. And the fourth is the devotion. And fifth is to remain connected in the service of Upasana. Having said so, it's enough for the day. ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है.